everybody, welcome back to the Beyond the Peloton podcast. I'm Spencer Martin, author of the Beyond the Peloton newsletter. As always, I'm here with Andrew Vaughn at the Choose Our Way podcast, thebetterlab.io. We recorded this is a special episode we recorded during our warm weather retreat in Tucson, Arizona, where we got some great rides in. Host of Pace Ranch, thank you so much, Pam Alexander, for putting us up there. If you're looking for a place to stage your training camp from in Arizona, check out Pace Ranch. We recorded this episode with Jonathan Kaplan of the Riding With newsletter and our friend Kip Taylor of Iron Horse Bike Classic fame. You'll find out in the episode. I apologize for some of the audio issues we had. You might hear a dryer running, some Normatec boots pumping. My travel mic setup is not as dialed as it should be. I will get it taken care of before the Tour de France. Do not worry. But please enjoy the episode. All right, let's get into it.
Thanks, Pam. Love the Pace Ranch. This is the place to go to if you come to Tucson and are lucky enough to stay at the Pace Ranch. This is a wonderful facility. We're partaking of the Normatec boots right now, about to hop into the infrared sauna as a group following the recording. I'm leaving filled with the spirit of gravel and just passionate about our time together.
Me as well. And we're here. Maybe listeners sense us just a one big fan of the show, but also very decorated cyclist in his own right. Kip Taylor. Kip, do you want to say anything? I'm going to hand it over to you. I also incorrectly thought you were a national hill climb champion because you won Pikes Peak hill climb. I guess the year you did it, it wasn't in it.
It's not a full Pikes Peak either, not to take anything away from your accomplishment, Kip, but to take a little bit away from it, probably like, 2,000-3,000 feet up to that parking lot?
In being close to the line.
One Iron Horse Bike Classic, dusted, nut over, and I just want to let listeners know that sound you're hearing in the background, that's my Normatec pump. It's Don't Be Disturbed. There it goes. All right, Kip, take it away.
It's a pleasure to be here. Tucson, if you've never been there in the winter, is just a fantastic place to warm up, especially with the polar vortex coming in. It's just been a pleasure, gentlemen. Had a great weekend, a big week of riding, and you guys start planning the next one, I think.
Yeah, I've actually, I can't remember taking a cycling trip or taking a trip for the purposes of riding, not with a competition that results in just the normal things that go on around an event like that. So we've had some adventures. We've been out. We've seen the best and the worst of what Tucson has to offer. We can talk a little bit about. We were just driving back from dinner, and much like the featured dish, we are now air dried Seca beef. Is how I would characterize this group after 4 days in the wind here in Tucson. We're dried out.
Yeah. Lips are chapped, and we're ready to get out of the elements a little bit. It's been a long couple of days.
I looked over at Spence today when we were going up Mount Lemmon. I only ascended Mount Lemmon. I'll talk a bit later about the side of myself I revealed to the attendees here today related to descending.
Kip, you are older. We should practice this London talk by saying we went to Windy Point. Kip, you left early, you went all the way to the top, the tippy top to the ski resort. Thoughts on the climb?
I did. It's the first time I've done it. I loved every second of the climb. The descent was like butter. I guess we were talking to a local here today that they just kind of repaved the bottom 3 miles. Yeah, the bottom 3 miles. So a big fan of Mount Lemmon. I actually never done it before, which is kind of hard to believe myself. But yeah, incredible just seeing the landscape change as it does in the desert from kind of lower elevations up to it's snow up at the high elevations. It cools down for sure. Went to the cookie stop, the famous cookie stop. And did I get a cookie? No, but I had some chili. And the chili was good. And I made my way down and synced up with these guys.
Yeah, Jonathan, you've got to hop into action. Before you do that, do you want to check the Instagram live and see if we've had any questions come in? If you have any questions about the Tucson training camp here at Pace Ranch, what went down on the 10 freeway overpass on the ride yesterday, and why Bill Gates has a pass named after him, honoring Clippy and Windows Vista. Just drop us a question or comment there on Instagram Live and we can hop in. Jonathan, do we have anything coming in right now? Ben Davis, he should have been on this trip. Ben, how you doing? Thanks for checking in. Do you have any questions? All right, looks like we don't have any questions at this point. Maybe we'll edit this part out.
You brought us to a good place. I hope this thing is recording. We had an issue with Steve Butler. The first half of Answers, Mike just did it before, and that it's gonna.
I do that with microphones sometimes. Spencer, are you about to talk about your Dodge Ram 2500 getting? All right, we'll save that.
Inconclusive evidence. I went back there and checked it. But so Tucson, big training locale, probably used to be bigger, but they're all World Tour pros. The first day we were here, going to ride. John McCaffrey suffering the same seat slipping issues. Go to get some seat paste, carbon paste. Whose bike's on the wall? Quinn Simmons. From first World Tour sighting right there. Matthew Riccatello is your presenter. His dad came over, spoke to us today. Lovely man. Jimmy, external world champion, by the way, but kind of gave us background on what Matthew's training is the season. So they're all World Tour pros training here. Probably used to be a little bit bigger when you was a bigger scene in the States. Now we have to be in Europe. But the riding, you would say, I guess, Lemon is incredible. If you go up and down Lemon all day, especially if you live in the neighborhood of Bryn. The rest of it, a bit eclectic, you would say. Like to get from where we're staying on the east side of town to get to the bike path or any riding on the west side of town, you either have to hike a bike through a wash or ride on it used to be a limited access freeway overpass, which we did multiple times.
To be fair, this could be some errors with routing from some of the applications we use to try to find our way around the area, or just some good old human error. Who knows? Maybe there's a better way and we just haven't found it yet. But I think one thing that we concluded, if you've been following along on Instagram, as I know many of you have during the course of this epic adventure, you did see that Jonathan Kaplan and I stayed in Tucson's premier location, the Tucson Hilton East, located right on the bike path conveniently. It's not just glitz and glamour in a Friday night prime rib dinner with a large open freezing cold atrium over there at the Hilton East. Complimentary Keurig coffee bean and tea leaf K-cups in your room. You also have access to the river path and just miles and miles, like 60, 100 miles, whatever you want to do out there on that bike path, it's available to you. I actually would say that's a great location if you want to hit the flats a bit more and avoid some of the buckled pavement or brushes with death that we had on a few of our rides.
Yeah, I mean, I have a fear of bike paths, so I would say you're going to die on that bike path. But if you're on the bike path system, it is incredible. You could do a 100-mile loop if you wanted, probably just on the path. Maybe I don't know. I guess you could just stay closer to the path. I think a lot of people probably do stay in the city more and then drive out here. You see a lot of people drive out to do Lemon, park in that Safeway parking lot. I guess you could do that if you wanted to avoid the overpass, but I guess we all made it, so maybe it's safe. Who knows? But Kip, what were your thoughts on the non-Lemon ride? Like you did one big non-Lemon ride. What was your thoughts on that?
Well, first I want to say thanks to our host. What's the name of our place again? Pace Ranch. I can't say thank you enough. This is, if you're going to come to Tucson, they got you set up right here, and it's just been a pleasure to be able to stay here. I, too, am in the Normatex right now. First time in my life I've had the Normatex, and I feel the recovery. I feel ready to go for tomorrow. But yeah, to your point, yesterday was fun. We went through town. We got to see kind of the concrete jungle of Tucson, and we went through the university, right? And what was the name of the coffee shop? Presta.
I believe at the Mercado.
Presta at the Mercado. And you get a nice coffee there. You can get yourself a big breakfast burrito if that's your thing as well. But then I was very anxiously awaiting Gates Pass. The only time I've ever actually been over Gates Pass was with my family en route to the Desert Museum. And for whatever reason, I thought Gates Pass was going to be a little bit longer, a little bit steeper, and a little bit harder. But wouldn't you know it, in about 8 minutes, we were over Gates Pass and then descending into the Wild West Tucson desert. And from there, folks, you're in the Wild West, so you might make it back to town, you might not. And that's just kind of the risky I got to take when you come to Tucson. The weather's beautiful, but you're out there in the sticks, okay? So you got to be prepared for that. That's what I want to say about our ride yesterday, Spence.
Well, I think my biggest thrill on the ride, one of many, may have been dumping my chain on the outside of my big chain ring while going down Gates Pass. The pavement was a little rough. I am on a mechanical group set, as it should be and has been for quite some time in human civilization now, with rim brakes. And somehow my chain dumped on the outside, and it did the thing where the chain kind of knotted itself. I did manage to stop myself before the chain went into my wheel, which was good. I was a little bit worried. I haven't seen that chain dump to the outside of the chain ring many times in my life. So that was something special. And we had a lot of great moments on the ride. At one point, we were checking routing information on a certain app for probably the 50th or 60th time during the day. And I happen to be pretty familiar with the app that we were using. My suggestion was, hey, let's just take a look at the heat map, which I did. And these gentlemen who I'm here with right now had probably been sitting there for 4 or 5 minutes. I got my phone out. I said, okay, it looks like this is where we should go. I showed them on the heat map. Before I could get my phone back in my pocket, I think Kip was taking some of that Pikes Peak Iron Horse Classic winning power. Probably around 400 or 500 watts as I was trying to get my phone into my jersey and pull my gloves on. I had about a 10-minute chase out of Saguaro National Park to get back on and catch a wheel.
Yeah, no good deed goes unpunished when you're on the road.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you don't need to apologize. That's part of the fun of riding with other people. Jonathan, I saw you over there checking the Instagram. Do we have any questions coming in?
We have no questions coming in. So not yet.
Well,
not
this is something new. You know, when you're a disruptor, you try new things. That's part of what's going on right now.
Trying.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how are you feeling right now, Jonathan?
Well, let me say, first of all, this is the first time that we've met in person, so I'm really appreciative of that, and that you invited me out here and to meet Kip as well. But I have to say, the if you're from the East Coast and you've never been to the Arizona or the desert, it's a challenge, and it's just incredible. I mean, the ride through, how do you pronounce Saguaro West? What's over here?
We did both. We did the
East. Sorry,
Double Dog.
I thought that was that
8
mile loop. That 8 mile loop through the national park is probably one of the most fantastic rides I've ever done. I could ride the Tucson bike path all day, especially out to the where they park the airplanes in the museum.
Yeah, thanks for our local guide Matt McKenna for getting us out to the airplane junkyard, seeing the guppy, many other craft unusual in nature.
And I think even an old Air Force too. But obviously the Gates Pass was an epic ride. That was a huge day for me. I typically probably ride 5 to 8 hours a week, maybe 120 miles. If that's like at the far end, I'm way above that. So helping me get up, especially Kip. Kip got up to Gates Pass so fast he came back down to help me draft off of him to get back up. So I appreciate that. But I feel good. I'm super tired.
Jonathan's tired.
And happy.
That's fantastic. We're happy for you.
I got to pass it over to our hosts here. How are you guys feeling beyond Peloton training camp? I just got to know.
Outside the chap lips, I'm peaking. I'm ready to go again tomorrow, guys. I only felt good in the last 4 miles back to the house today. It's the only good 4 miles I've felt this entire trip.
Yeah.
I think the first ride, that was really hard. I mean, I would say just side note on Tucson, you'd say bit of a sprawled city. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah. Jonathan was saying to get to dinner tonight was equivalent to driving across the state of Maryland. But like downtown by the university, I was quite impressed. Like you could imagine having a few good times down there. And it was not so suburban sprawly. It's like an urban campus with a tram. Very impressive. The coffee shop, great. But yeah, I'm tired. I'm tired. Yesterday I was destroyed. I was not feeling that good last night, but felt a little bit better today. Andrew, do you feel like you're leaving? Also, the Tour Down Under is blowing up right now as we're watching it. 6.3K to go. Ineos was trying to do something, it looks like, and then it did not work. And now Jayco, Alula, and their new purple kits are on the front. But Andrew, How are you feeling?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I've really enjoyed getting down here and being warm. I spoke to my wife today, and she said, my face hurts when I go outside. That's how cold it is right now in Maine. I know that feeling. I had it as recently as last week. And, something I've thought about a lot as co-founder of the Better Lab. We guide you to mindfully build science-backed practices to sleep better and do them consistently, because that's really the only thing that actually improves your sleep. Every time that I travel, I do think a lot about how an unsung skill of professional athletes, and especially world tour athletes who are not in great accommodations and often are in a twin bed, maybe not of the highest quality or less, with a roommate, changing where they're staying, probably more than 100 times a night per year, is how getting great sleep is really a skill that you need to have as a professional athlete, really in any environment. We've talked about the first night effect before on Beyond the Peloton. It's like an evolutionary biology aspect of humans where you're extra vigilant the first night you sleep in a new place. That would, in the past protect you from potential predators. It doesn't always serve us so well when we do things like go on a trip to ride bikes. And I find I often end up not getting the best sleep when I'm on the road. And I'm glad that I'm not looking at a device telling me that I have horrible recovery, because it probably would ruin the trip.
Do you want to guess how much my Garmin told me I slept the first night we were here?
I'm going to say 4 hours.
1 hour, 59 minutes.
Yeah.
I can't imagine
Right?
that's true, but I didn't have the best night of sleep, but it did kind of mess with my head a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So just don't look at that. When you get somewhere, if you're going somewhere to ride, maybe if you want to look at the data after the trip or longitudinally, I don't think it's probably going to serve you, because the reality is you're going to wake up, you're going to go out and ride with your buddies or do an event potentially, and can't let what a device tells you ruin what you need to actually go do that day.
Yeah. Yes. And would you, I guess, could you guys imagine yourselves spending, I guess, let's say 6 weeks here, just like logging miles? You're a world tour cyclist. You got to show up at the UA tour ready, like fit, ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, would you choose Tucson as a home base? And you don't have we do not have a deal with the Tucson, like Chamber of Commerce. We can say whatever we want.
I do feel like between the bike path and Mount Lemmon, you have your zone 2 and a perfect place to do any interval you want, probably up a hill, solved.
Yeah. And I you guys have seen this. I think there's a huge unfair advantage here in the wintertime for Tucson. Warm during the day, but guess what? Everybody's got a pool in Tucson, and it's got to be under 50 degrees. And I'm a cold plunger. You guys have seen this. I like doing a cold plunge, and I like following it up with the sauna. I think the cold plunge here is second to none, because everybody's got a pool, but it's very cold. And I like that. I would come and train in Tucson. You got your Lemon, you got the Valley, you got the bike trails, but you've got the cold plunge as well. Huge fan. I'm a huge fan of the cold plunge here in Tucson.
I'm going to get this is probably one of the most controversial takes I've ever had on this show. And I've had a lot of hot takes. Something I thought about on this trip, and granted, I got to spend a few days with my best friend, Nick Crump, up there in Phoenix, Arizona. We were co-owners of the Yarbarber Lawn Service, just legends in the turf care industry in the Kansas City area for 8+ years, spanning high school and college in the late 80s, early 90s through the early 2000s almost. And something I thought about on this trip this week is I actually think I may have gotten deconditioned on this trip relative to the training I've been doing on Zwift, because you just never stop pedaling on Zwift and you have total control of your environment. It's super easy. I'm not saying I don't like riding outside or spending time with other people. I love
kind of saying that.
I love doing those things. During our ride out to Bill Gates Pass, during the many moments when I truly thought we were going to die, which there are a lot of vehicles going at a high rate of speed on bad roads with no shoulders, or in some instances for 5 to 10 miles while we were riding on an actual highway. And I did think, you can pedal the entire time on Zwift. You have total control of your training. is that potentially a better environment if you can mentally stomach it? We've seen all of the hamsters in triathlon world. Lionel Sanders, I'm talking to you. We tried to get you on the show. You're still welcome. Come.
He didn't see the message.
He didn't see the message.
That's the official.
You get a lot of DMs, but we'll work our back channels. Come on over anytime to Pace Ranch.
Well,
we'd love to have you on.
Be here. Lionel, check.
Just knock on the door. Tell them who you're looking for, and they'll put you through on the Instagram Live. I'm being serious though. I was like, wow, this is kind of wild. We're in this place to ride, and I feel like I got a little deconditioned this week.
This is a pretty wild take.
Yeah.
Swift in the drops, thinking that's where.
No, I mean, and okay, but the flip side of this is, I mean, I've really almost completely lost my stomach for road riding because I just feel like I'm going to die constantly when I'm around lots of vehicles going at a high rate of speed. TikTok ban or whatever happens there, everybody's on their phone, no one's paying attention, and I feel like you're in a lot of danger if you're out there riding a road bike.
Setting that aside,
yeah,
the pretty wild take, but don't you think lemon is the solution, like setting the safety side to that issue? Like you could just have pressure on the pedals for, I mean, Kip, what did it take you to go to the top? Probably like over 2.5 hours.
I mean, yeah, it's a ways up there, but Andrew makes a good point. But what I see, Spencer and I have been riding bikes for a long time. I don't know what you want to call it, if you want to call it like the roadie mentality or whatever. But to Andrew's point, anywhere you go, especially in the West, there's cars just zooming past you. You get the punish pass where they pass you under 3 feet. And Spencer and I we're kind of riding, and it happens. You're just kind of it's just kind of part of it. And I'm coming back home to family. We're all coming back home to families, and it is crazy. I think that's why you see this excessive gravel now for so many people, because the idea of gravel is I'm getting away from all that. Like, you don't get away from cars completely, but you're not dealing with this concrete jungle, cars punish passing you under 3 feet, going 50 miles an hour in a 25 mile an hour speed zone, not caring about where you're going home to or anything along those lines. So it is a very good point, but at the same time, I love riding so much. It's like, it's kind of a sickness where you're like, okay, I guess I got to roll with the punches here, or roll with the idea of that.
I totally agree. I'm not saying I'm moving the trip next year, but this is what I noticed in the summer. Like, there's just not that many roads, especially in the Western United States. There's so few paved roads that they're almost always a thoroughfare to go somewhere, except Lemon, actually the fewest cars we probably saw all week. Yeah. But like, you go to these places like the Costa Blanca in Spain, and there's just probably endless roads, and that's why it's so popular. So, at Kip, I agree. It is a bit of a sickness. Can't stop, even though we know it's dangerous. We're also watching someone that I don't know solo to a pretty impressive victory at the Tour Down Under. Wow. I don't even know how that fully unfolded, but impressive. But yeah, that is why we're moving it to Spain next year. Jonathan, do you want to say something?
It's a wonderful Instagram handle. What question do they have?
We're lucky to have them. Wow.
Do you have any questions, Instagram? All right. I also want to, just to dime myself out. So the flip side of, I've been on Zwift quite a bit the past couple of months. And, Spencer and Kip come from mountain states, ride big mountains all the time. I used to ride big mountains in Los Angeles, up in the Angeles Crest Forest area. The two, if you're from LA, Mount Wilson, you know the deal. Like, you've got at least 7,000 feet up and down there. Not on the best roads. I used to go do that stuff all the time. I've just kind of lost my stomach for it. And coming off the trainer all winter, and then like just going out on the highway and then trying to ride down a gigantic mountain, I don't know. It's a bit jarring for me, but that's on me.
But you might have uncovered the Hilton East Tucson as the ideal training spot.
Yes.
You're on a bike path. It might have a freezing lobby.
Bike paths here are incredible. The bike paths here got to be a foot wider on each side than your average bike path. And that's what makes it really nice. I mean, people are walking their dogs and stuff like that. However, the wide bike paths make you can be in a small group. If we do a group ride back in northern Colorado, oftentimes you're not going on any trails because the trails are small. If you're on any sort of group, you're going to be having to slow down because somebody's with their kid or something along those lines. But here, I think Tucson did a really good job with these bike paths. And a lot of them haven't been around for like more than a decade or. Yeah. So, I mean, we don't remember seeing them over a decade ago. So it seems like Tucson has done a really good job of making these trails kind of thoroughfare to get to the east side, get to the west side, get over to Lemon, get over towards the university. It's just getting to them. And this is probably us. Like, we're not here all the time. I'm sure if we had somebody local with us yesterday, they would have been like, oh, we got to just jump a block over this way and you're avoiding this major thoroughfare. But yeah, it is nice to see these trails that seem to be specifically catered to the riding community around here.
This Movistar rider has the hottest haircut in cycling right now. This is like, I'm seeing it everywhere. Derek Teal from Dialed Health. I'm talking about you. It's kind of a wide mohawk, I would call it. But this is like the hot new gravel style. This is an example of bubble up, not trickle down style, going from the gravel scene here in the United States straight to the world tour level and now to the top of the podium.
Who looks like that in gravel?
I'm telling you, get on Instagram. It's Gravel Nation. Can you verify this? The new gravel haircut. It's the wide mohawk.
Very handsome man. We're looking at first career win, Javier Romo. I'm like speechless. That was a really, really hard victory.
Yeah, how did he do that?
I don't know. We need to rewatch this.
I mean, I've seen this cut. And Zach Whitney Allison, shout out to Foco Fondo. They're down here training hard. And Zach, I believe, has floated that gravel style haircut as well. I believe I've seen that on Zach.
Zach count as a gravel? He's a roadie.
Zach's a roadie. You know, a lot of us came from that roadie mentality, but Zach, he's really made that transition over to grav. Can I say grav on this show? Is that okay? Is that okay here? All right.
What do I to take this away from Tucson for 1 second? I also think I stayed here in 2012 and did some camps with the Cycling House. And as you guys were talking about those busy roads and whatnot, I do remember we vanned out behind Lemon for some rides. And there are like empty, like truly empty roads out there. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well,
but
maybe you could get an Airbnb out there.
You could, but I guess you can't climb Lemon. You could do the unpaved side if you wanted. Could be, but that's where the biodome is too. Could you stay in that? Can't Airbnb
I think a
biodome.
biodome training camp in 2026 would be that's where it's at.
I think that's closer to like where the old Pueblo 24-hour race is, perhaps. On this, just before we wrap this up, I think Kip and I were talking about this right before we started. Like let's say 5 years ago, it was a joke if you won the Tour Down Under. They just flashed the top 10. It's like top riders, like top, except Javier Romo, who maybe is a new top rider. But like the guys doing well at this race are going to be, like, I looked it up. The people who finished in the top 5 of the GC last year at the Tour Down Under all went on to have the best years of their career, like for the rest of that 2024 season. Like, why has this happened? I don't really have an answer for this. Is this part of just changing training? And so, I mean, like Matthew Riccatella's dad was talking to us about his training today. And it was shockingly refined for whatever date it is, January 22nd. Like, you would not have heard that from a pro 10, 20 years ago. Like, I'm going to do my ride, then I'm going to come back. I don't want to reveal too much about his training. But he had some plan concocted with the trainer that it just struck me how structured that was for this point in the year, when it used to just be like, gotta get the legs turning over, getting the miles in. I guess that's contributed to this strange perma fitness that we're seeing throughout the whole year.
Yeah. Do we want to touch on Pidcock at all?
Like, what about him?
I mean,
did you wait? Now that you've opened the can of worms, this headline drives me insane. It's like, have you guys seen this headline? Tom Pidcock just skipped the Tour de France.
Yes.
He's not skipping it. He didn't get invited. Like, I didn't skip prom. I just wasn't invited. Like, you can't just say I'm skipping. It's like, well, your team's not invited, Tom. Like, what is this? You guys, you're the comms guys. I guess that's good communications, but it bothers me so much.
I'm bothered as well. And allegedly, I mean, he just stated a couple of weeks ago he wants to go for Grand Tour GCs. Right?
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Wait. Did
he did.
No, did
I
he
believe
say GC like is in 1 week stage races?
I don't know.
I don't. Yeah, no fuzzy.
Well, hold on.
now.
This is like going back to our, I guess my monologue about how sleep plays the ability to be an adaptive sleeper in any environment plays such a critical role in being a Grand Tour contender or just being a professional bike racer generally. Spencer, you made the observation that perhaps this is one of the factors between people who are great 1 week stage racers and people who can win an actual Grand Tour is, I don't know, maybe you could not get great sleep. It wouldn't be ideal, but you could just get by on your fitness and talent and win a week-long race. But that's not going to work for 3 weeks. Like, you have to be somebody who can just get great sleep
like
anywhere.
a road dog, basically. Like,
Yeah.
Can you sleep anywhere for 3 weeks? Which, yeah, I haven't actually never newfound respect for it. Like, I was so tired yesterday, and you were talking about this, Andrew. Like, you actually have a hard time going to sleep, and your rest isn't that good.
Right.
Like, I guess the top guys maybe aren't destroyed after every stage because it's so easy for them. But there
Yeah.
are hard stages, and you got to go back to a weird hotel room and go to sleep. It's not easy to do.
Well, and think about these guys, especially at Grand Tours, racing in the late afternoon, and we know they're pounding caffeine. They're taking upwards of
Sometimes
5,
they finish at like they finish like 6 p.m.
and they're
6:30.
having like 500 milligrams of caffeine in the last hour of that
Yeah.
race. The half-life of caffeine is 6 hours. You do the math. That's pretty intense. I mean, just as we're talking about this out loud, we talk all the time about, is there more of a Moneyball approach you could take to identify top talent and have a more financially savvy approach to developing a professional team? I'm actually thinking, I mean, we know everybody's looking at Training Peaks data, and I'm just wondering if you have your team psychologist kind of like dig into someone's sleep. I mean, yeah, you could look at the data, but I think that there's a lot just from a personality point of view you need to understand about someone's adaptability, not just fitting in the team, but how do they adapt to the environment they have to be in as it relates to sleep.
Pretty interesting idea. I mean, you probably should. Like, what
I
would
mean,
be- what would be the
if you have the
downside?
best numbers in the world and you like can't sleep in a different crappy hotel room every night
Yeah.
that's super noisy without air conditioning, like, you're not going to perform.
I mean, there was like a highly touted NBA player, guy going into the NBA a few years ago, and he couldn't sleep on planes, and he was out of the league in like six months. It's like, doesn't matter how good you are, if you can't sleep on a plane, like, they're flying overnight to games most of the time. So it just like didn't matter. Like,
Brutal.
you got to be able to sleep on the plane. I'm thinking of things popping in my head about the trip. I'm still shocked we saw Quinn Simmons' bike. If you gave us a challenge before we came to town, like $1 million on the line, find Quinn Simmons' bike in a bike shop, that's probably the last shop we would have looked at.
Can
Like,
we talk about how it actually went down? I'd like credit.
Well, I'm getting there. So we're standing in the shop. It, like, I guess it's kind of unassuming, but I was telling Kip, it's like the shop with one guy working. Like, that's actually the good shop.
Yeah.
He's like got the business model figured out. Probably a good wrench. You don't have all the other BS. We're standing there and like Andrew's just immediately like, Quinn Simmons' bike. Simmons' bike. Like, his radar was off. And like, once you look closely, you know, because you see it out of the corner of your eye, you think, yeah, it's just a Trek bike. Like, whatever you see, like someone's got a replica, but you can just tell, like, the way it's set up, like no normal person would be able to ride that. Like,
Yeah.
it has this very distinctive narrow handlebars, canted in, but I guess not against the rules because they've made the handlebars too kind
They
of
used a
naturally
tool to get them
canted.
at just the right angle. They're not going past the limit,
Yeah.
but they're on the limit, right?
And just like narrow handlebars, long stem, like big drop. It's just this distinctive setup. But the thing that really shocked me, and Andrew and I have been talking about since, same thing with Kip, same thing with Matt McKenna, these big wheels. And like, what's crazy is Quinn Simmons probably had wider wheels than Kip does, who's family man with the job. Like, Simmons was probably running 34s on that thing.
Yeah, I think he was.
And I heard even Mads Pedersen, his teammate, races on 32s. Like, I think there's something to like embrace the fat tires. I guess that's Dylan Johnson's whole thing. Maybe people should listen to him.
Yeah, I hope that we get some new rim brake bikes that can take the wider wheels.
We're waiting for these direct mount brakes that you can fit a 36 in there maybe.
They're the future.
Yeah, I think Kip, I was telling Andrew this, Kip in 2019, I think you were like, I just don't, I think these disc brakes are a fad. Like it's all going to be direct mount rim brakes. They're more powerful. You can fit a wire tire. And I was riding some today. I can tell you you can fit a fairly wide tire in there. But on the descent today, I mean, Kip on these 32s, like you're gripping that corner so well. And it really makes sense that people would ride a wider tire. I think honestly, a lot of times people get in their own head about like, well, if I'm at a 32, it's rolling too slow. But if you're on any sort of imperfect surface, you're rolling so much faster with the extra give you're getting. So yeah, that actually was my takeaway of the trip was Quinn Simmons tires. I would love to get a caliper in there and test how wide those things were.
Yeah.
There's still tomorrow. I might have a restraining order against me if I show up at his neighborhood shop one more time. Any parting thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't heard much from JK, and he really put in a hero's effort over at Gates Pass and back into town when he learned that we had 50 miles to go. Jonathan, I felt like you were particularly heroic on the highway segment where we had to cross over where there was the off ramp. Do you have any thoughts on that experience?
Don't answer yet.
Where are we talking about?
This is choose your own adventure. Like take that wherever you want to. Jonathan Kaplan, you're a superstar.
Use their own terms. Yeah. All the speculation.
Well, they may have been that source.
Well, so they.
Oof. Yeah, maybe not the right message for last week. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Meg party.
It's like a timeline. It's a timeline and time. It is. And can you imagine how mad his mom would? You imagine how mad his mom. You have to do that, but it is. But it is like George Hincapie when he made the move said like that's what you didn't take anything like that. It's strange. Like normally a star like that would take. Normally a star like that would usually take it. Can't you know? But the genius of yeah. Peter Sagan, like Kip was saying, but all was famous for bringing his brother on the team. He had a Slovak. He had a Slovak. I don't know if you could say that, but Slovakian mechanic that you take around every team. The reason you have to do is just like to chat with these guys. So it's like if Pitcock Lexi's brother, it's like he's got someone he can chat to on the team. Like that's the utility. I mean, maybe he's a great rider, but I mean, maybe he's at least with Sagan, like you have a guy you can trust. It's like you can talk to him at races and like it's not nothing. It's a decent reason to sign Justin. Yeah, it was. It is a time honored. It is time honored that the star brings. The star buddies. Yeah, unusual. It's a brother, but it's fun. It's fun. Like anything else? Andrew, Kip's asking from Mike.
20 miles, 5,001 feet. I think most people listening understand this, but I'm amazed that you can come down here and that's just like Mount Lemmon official segment. That's pretty slick. And Spencer does that. What would be close to that in Europe? I mean, is there anything that comes to mind that would match that? I mean, out at grade, just under 5% at 4.7, but it's pretty slick that you can start so low in the desert and then rise up 5,000 feet. And that's not even the top of Mount Lemmon. I mean, you could go up to the ski resort, which I learned there's a gate, but if you can get through the gate, it takes you to the telescopes up at the top. I mean, it is significant, and it's pretty slick that that's just down here in the lower 48. It's no secret. Everybody knows about it, but when you get a chance to ride it, it's just spectacular.
It's really long. I would assume it's the longest climb on the 48, as you say. Like that's really big. The only bigger ones in the U.S. I could think of are Haleakala, and that's paved the whole way. That's 36 miles, 10,000 feet of elevation gain. They have a bigger climb here, which we've done. Important to note that. And then the big island has a bigger ones at 14,000 kilometers, but they're not paying to call it Europe. I think the Alps, you have some long climbs, like 30, 35 kilometers, but you couldn't ride those in the winter, so you disqualify that. Sierra Nevada in Spain, kind of similar climb actually, where it's like a pinball climb. It's like a mountain that's like in the middle of a place that doesn't have a mountain chain.
Yeah.
And it's in southern Spain, so really, really long climb, maybe even longer than London. And then the Canary Islands has like massive climbs that probably would be similar. But I mean, if you're talking for at least a North American based athlete, if you're like, yeah, we could go to the Canary Islands or Tucson, especially for us, Kip, the fact that it's like an hour and a half long flight.
Yeah.
And it's warm when it's negative 15 millibar. It's hard to beat that. It's slick. Yeah, it's just, but it's a decent. Just before we go, I have to get something else off my chest. But they just showed Sam Alsford on TV. I just saw an article today in a publication I won't name. It was like, is it the year of Alsford? It's like, man, do we just forget everything? And he won the first 3 stages of the Tour Down Under last year and then didn't go on to do anything. I mean, he did win a stage at the Tour of Hungary, but that was his only other win the rest of the year. It's like, we're just watching history repeat itself. Sam Alsford has figured out how to win these stages. It does not mean he's going to be winning Tour de France stages. Let's pump the brakes, people. But that's my parting note to this wonderful trip with these wonderful people. Andrew, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say grab some friends and go somewhere more of a ride if you can do it. That probably goes without saying, but make time to do it and do something that's not an actual event would be my recommendation. It might actually be more fun.
You might have been deplatformed by Instagram. I see a notice. I've got a notice on there. But yeah, actually, we cannot emphasize what you just said enough. Because there's a million reasons we shouldn't have done this, and maybe our time would have been better spent home with our family, but it's important to do this. I'm glad you did. Great time. Special thanks to Kip and Andrew for the great drafts and at Pace Ranch. Such good. I actually don't know if we would have finished right the other day without Kip. It was an important pacing at work there. Kip, anything else before we go?
Wonderful. Felt 2 days, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks. And to all the Beyond the Peloton viewers, appreciate you guys tuning in.
Good night and good luck.